Billiken fans, welcome back. It's Zach Miller and Peter Hale. It's the Midtown Madness Podcast. Before we get going, thank you guys again so much for listening. And if you're watching on YouTube, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. It's season 5. Once again, the Midtown Madness Podcast is brought to you by Two Men in a Garden. Looking for the absolute best local salsa on the shelf. It's Two Men in a Garden. It is fresh, simple ingredients, all the flavor you could ask for, and they've got all the flavors you could possibly ask for. Dipping, topping, or mixing. This salsa does it all. Two Men in a Garden salsa will elevate your mid-game snacking. Visit them online at twomeninagarden.com to shop your favorite flavors and learn more about their story and their partner products at the Kitchen Hub STL. Don't forget to follow them on social media at Two Men Salsa on Instagram and Twitter for the latest updates from Two Men in a Garden. Pete, they've also signed a multi-year sponsorship with St. Louis Shock.
They sure have, Zach. From the official press release, quote, "This exciting collaboration will bring co-branded products available at retail outlets, on-site activations at Shock events and community gatherings, co-branded giveaways for fans at all tournaments, watch parties, and more. Today, we're celebrating St. Louis pride, building community, and fueling momentum for the 2025 season. Let's keep the excitement growing both on and off the court."
Pete, we've got a lot to talk about here. We've got basketball. Of course, basketball. We've got a Katie Shields quote on Emily Puricelli that you're not going to want to miss. And yeah, let's get after it right away here, Pete. An 81-67 win versus Quinnipiac. And Stu's headline, which I want to get your take on, is Robbie Avila's return was overshadowed by performances by Isaiah Swope and Kalu Anya. I don't know. What do you think?
It doesn't bother me at all, Zach. I mean, that's kind of how it should be, unless Robbie Avila is some kind of superhero. And when he returns,
I would like him to be.
I would like him to be as well. But most people, when they return, are not in full health, mid-season form, just like that. The fact that his return was overshadowed by two players who were at full health, playing better, is kind of how you want and expect it to be. So SLU is lucky that these guys stepped up to take that mantle, even in his big comeback game.
Swope had 30 points, a 30-piece McNugget, tying his career high. He was 9 of 21 from the field, 5-11, 5 of 11 from 3, 7 of 9 from the line, 6 assists, 4 rebounds, 2 steals, 2 turnovers. I mean, the guy was everywhere, all over the stat sheet in this one.
Yeah, he wasn't the most efficient, as you reminded me a lot during this game, right? He was.
I did.
It took him a while to heat up. He was a little bit streaky, but 5 of 11 from 3, we'll take that. He did play all 40 minutes as well. I know that wasn't by design, but it just kind of worked out that way. So, yeah, Zach, I mean, it wasn't a perfect performance. And had he been a little more efficient, I think that we could have easily seen that in the mid-30s, if not the high 30s. But nonetheless, that's a big game from him, and it seemed to get better as it went on.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of I'm very much on the board. Like, I'm dangerously close to becoming a Swope hater.
Wow.
Well, I think in the same way that like watching Tremaine Isabel bothered me.
Sure.
I just don't like inefficient basketball at times.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there's no doubting his importance or contribution to this team so far in the season. Right. He's part of the reason we still have a seat. Like this team could be winless, honestly, without Avila, but Swope has been the guy.
He really has. He really has. He stepped up. I understand what you're saying about like kind of he can be tough at times because the shot selection can be a little bit erratic. I don't think we're just not a team that's designed for the ball to spend as much time in his hands as it has so far this year. And it's just had to be that way because of other injuries, unfortunately, with Robbie, with Dotzler, with some of the other injuries that we've been dealing with, illnesses, guys just not being able to play full minutes. Swope has had to shoulder a much bigger load. And I think that has led to some inefficiency, to some being out of position, to a ripple effect on the team in general. You really, you want him with Robbie, you want him, with a team that's fully healthy. And we haven't had that a whole lot yet. So, I tried to give him a little bit of grace, but I do know what you're saying.
Kalu Anya is just all over the boards in this one. 18 rebounds to go along with his 12 points. The Billikens have had 17-20 rebound games in history. It's not a record-setting performance, but it was impressive because of who was sitting in the front row baseline in this game. Mr. Billiken rebound himself. That was Anthony Bonner.
Yeah, he had to like what he sees on the boards from this guy, right? And how tall was Bonner listed at when he played?
That was like, I wasn't reading yet, so
was he 6'9", 6'10"? I think Anya's a couple inches shorter than him, I guess is my point, right? So when you see a guy putting up those kind of rebounding numbers, Kalu being, I think, 6'8" in shoes probably, and Bonner, let's see what we've got him listed at. He was typically listed at about 6'8" as well. All right. I still think Bonner is a guy that looks taller than Anya. Maybe that's my kid goggles.
He's larger than life. I think he's just larger than life.
I think that's what it is. But I do think he does have an inch or so on Anya. And you gotta respect a guy who's 6'7", 6'8" out there and just banging for rebounds the way he does. He really was all over the glass, always in position. And we always say it, but he said before the season, I want to lead the league in rebounding. And it seems like he's really focused on that and well on his way to doing so.
By the way, Shirts has got to stop referring to Kalu Anya as grabbing balls in his post game. He's got to stop it. It's getting uncomfortable. I do want to talk about Robbie Avila though in this one. He was still effective over the course of his 30 minutes. 14 and 6. Pete, it's kind of funny because his style, besides the passing aspect, is really suited to a guy, coming back from a long layoff. He's very much not really a rhythm guy. He's just kind of he's a thumper. He just kind of backs people down slowly and then throws a little misdirection in there. And then he's got a wide open lane to the hoop. It's bizarre.
Yeah. It's not a flashy game. It's an understated game. As Shirts say, it's pretty low to the ground game.
Yes. Hold on. Why do we have him taking the jump ball? Can someone explain that to me? The guy has a stack of like a ream of paper. That's his vertical.
Yeah, have Kellen take it or something like that. I mean,
Anya
Kalu, yeah, why not?
He gets his hands on balls.
I thought it was this. I had the same thought, right? Like, not only does he not have much of a vertical, he's coming back from ankle injury, and he's just not going to win that tip. We're never going to win that.
Although he did, I believe, win it in the UMass Lowell game.
Okay, all right.
I think so. But still, my point is made.
Yeah, I mean, look, he couldn't get it to fall, right? Like he finished with 30 minutes, maybe a little more than I expected him to play. Finished with 14 and 6, respectable. He just could not get anything to fall until the second half, though, right? I mean, how many in the first half felt like they were just about there, but kind of rattled out? He was just a little bit off. You could see the frustration, right? He would turn and kind of punch his palm or something like that. He knew he was just kind of close. And not quite there. And, I don't know. Things started falling in the second half, though.
Him going through the boot to no boot to he's not making much progress to playing, and then them saying that he's going to only maybe play 15, 20 minutes, and then him just telling Shirts he's fine, he's good.
Yeah.
Is the most 21-year-old shit I've ever seen.
It really is.
He is... We're gonna have to talk about his conditioning at some point, man. Like, I mean, we talked about it with Jokic. Well, we didn't talk about it, but the royal we. You know, the ESPN talked about it with Jokic. Like, if he's going to have a career in the NBA and if he's going to be better than he can be, like if he's going to improve, like there's going to have to be some sort of, you know, change in physical makeup.
They're working on it. From everything I've heard, they're working on it, right? Like it's a work in progress, but I don't know. The fact that he can get back out there and do it is still,
yeah. Oh,
that's all I ask. But I got to say, man, every time he goes to the floor, ooh, do I hold my breath?
Yes. I think there was when he fell over the guy in Lowell. I think there was at least one person within earshot saying, "Oh no."
Yes. Oh yeah. I turned to my mom.
Oh, be careful.
Like, every time he falls, it's hard to watch. You know, I got to look away. But yeah, nonetheless, good game for him. I thought Jimerson had a pretty quiet 16 points in 33 minutes. But the headline for him in this game is that he passed Erwin Claggett for second on the all-time scoring list. Zach, and you know who the all-time scorer is because he was sitting courtside. But Jimerson now 19-16 after this game. I think what would that be? 1940 after the next game. So he is closing in on Bonner, and it sounds like it could be 2, maybe 3 games at the most.
We thought it could have been the Lowell game
for a while. And we'll get to that.
Kellen Thames. We're going to have a conversation about Kellen Thames because what in God's name is going on? Stu just put out an article on the situation, and it sounds a lot like Fred Thatch, and I'm wondering why Stu didn't connect that in the article, and I wonder how like the sports medicine staff has to already kind of see the parallel here, right?
Yeah, but with Thatch in the end, didn't he have a blood condition that they didn't originally know about? Right,
like I believe so.
He was dehydrating, right? Like during games, unusually, and I know we talked about his pickle regimen and things like that. The kind of the unorthodox ways that they were kind of getting him back up to speed. But with Thames, I don't know. Maybe he doesn't want us to jump to the conclusion that, oh, is it the same thing? If it's a different thing, it always gets billed as cramping, right? Like that's what's happening, and that is often a sign of dehydration, or could be other things. But there's something persistent going on here, and it's frustrating because when he's at full tilt, he's a blast to watch, and his potential is as high as anyone on the team. He started in this game. He had 19 minutes, had 6 and 4, but had to leave early in the second half, and we didn't see after that. Didn't see him after that. So,
and we can get further into it on the next game and just kind of circle back to the actual article because the article was just published today, about a couple hours before we hopped on. Everyone kind of started to notice. And people were like, what's going on with Thames? What's going on with Thames? And, I think the good news was that he was in the locker room and he hadn't come out in the second half. Like once you notice that he had not come out late in the game, you're like, okay, they didn't stop the game. So it's not life or death.
Right.
If he's in the back, it's obviously something that he can't be out on the floor with. So it's not, physical. Or, you know what I mean? It's physiological, not muscular or bone or anything like that. So I think after a while, people just kind of defaulted to a poopy situation. But obviously that wasn't the case. I wish it was the case. Because he would have played more in the Lowell game. But I don't know. I think, after you started to look at all the pieces, you're like, okay, at least it's not, some sort of physical injury like an ankle or a knee or anything like that. And hopefully he's just ill. And we'll get to the Lowell game. Let's talk about McCoughtry, Johnson, and Hughes, who all played double-digit minutes, but weren't particularly productive on the score sheet.
No, they combined for just 3 points total. They did some nice things though. McCautry had 3 steals, including one that led to a nice fast break, a dime at the other end that, literally dropping the dime behind him. He also had one of those games that I don't think was really captured in the box score, but he's making an impact out there, right?
I think he's making a huge impact on defense. I mean, I think there are some times where he's not the best on switches. On the team defense side, he's not great. But individual 1v1 defense, he has picked many pockets this season.
That's right. Yeah, he's a freshman.
Call him the Artful Dodger.
Mm-hmm. He's learning the art of team defense for sure. But the physical skills, the ability is there to be a high level defender. He's mistake prone freshman is really what it comes down to. Kobe Johnson had 4 assists, quiet game overall though. And then Hughes, almost Zach, had an 11 trillion, meaning his stat
the biggest.
Just
would that
minutes.
be the best trillion in history? There was a guy who played I think there was a guy who played 39 minutes and did nothing or something ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean, there's got to be more than 11 out there, but he did register 1 foul and no other stats, so not quite a clean trillion.
By the way, Paul Otieno of Quinnipiac, awesome. I love this guy. I think I thought he was the guy we're missing. I feel like he's the guy we're missing. I think I yelled how much NIL to transfer at one point in that first half.
I think you did. Yeah, he finished with 19 and 10 overall. He's a really impressive player. They were picked to win their poll, picked in the preseason.
Say what?
To win their conference, and that's the kind of guy that I think is a difference maker in a league like that. You just don't find bigs like that in every team, in the MAC, AA MAC.
Quinnipiac was good. I mean, I would have really liked for the Quinnipiac Lowell game to be played between our games, because I think that would have been a hell of a game to watch.
Yeah, it would have. Their MAC preseason player of the year, Amari Monroe, didn't really look like it in this game. 4 points on 2 of 11 shooting. But we should acknowledge that they were without their point guard, Savion Lewis. He's not much of a scorer at all, but he did have over half of the team's assists heading into this game. So this was not 100% Quinnipiac team that we saw. But yeah, Zach, I liked what I saw out of them. I think they're a solid team. I think they're going to threaten to win that league, if not win it outright. So I'll definitely be keeping an eye on them throughout the season. There have been plenty of times over the years where we play somebody and we think, wow, that's a good team. And then they finish, 4th or 5th in the Ohio Valley. I mean, I'm thinking of SIUE when they came back and won on us in that brutal game.
Oh no, we were just dog shit.
They finished in the middle of the OVC. That one stung. I thought, well, at least we did it to a better than average SIUE team, but they really weren't. Oh well. As for SLU, Zach, they did not make it easy on us spectators in the first half.
Quinnipiac made us sweat. They did. They gave them. They were leading this game, man.
Most of the first half. SLU led by 1 at halftime, and then early in the second half, SLU started to build on that lead a little bit, right, and kind of put this thing at arm's distance. Eventually, it just took a lot longer than we hoped it would.
I'm trying to recall any time where Swope this season hasn't made a shot to beat the buzzer. Like if he's taken one at the buzzer, it's gone in. It feels like.
Yeah.
Like I've talked about him being inefficient, but right at buzzer time, he's making a shot.
It's a good sign. He's got that big game potential, right?
He's wearing his clutch jeans.
Yes. The SLU only shot 34% from the field, 33% from 3 in the first half, but those went to 50 and 40% in the second half to make it a much more respectable showing overall. Schertz, Zach, was much happier with the toughness and defense after that disaster of a game against Wichita State. So I think he said this was kind of the most complete game he's seen out of them so far.
We are going to talk about this cluster of a game. That ended up with a Billiken win. So, at the end of the day, what are we doing, right? 93-90 win versus UMass Lowell. Yes, 183 points were scored in this game between both teams. And I'll be damned if I didn't have a nice Shake Shack burger and fries on Monday to celebrate the Houdini act that the Billikens pulled off on Wednesday, on Blackout Wednesday, on Skanksgiving. This game was a tale of two halves.
It really was, Zach. But I think probably we need to go over the end of this game first.
You're gonna do the Tarantino thing?
I'm gonna do the Tarantino thing.
Are there gonna be pictures of feet?
Yeah, but they're gonna be, because I'm gonna shoot on 35 millimeter. They're gonna be way off on the sides. It's gonna be for film geeks only to really, Easter eggs for you in there. SLU was up by 21 at one point in the second half, right?
I believe they were at 98, 99% win percentage at one point.
Yeah, if you're up by over 20 in the second half, that sounds about right. But Lowell chipped away, including an 11-0 run at one point. They went 9 of 11 from 3 in the second half.
I need to ask you about these 3-point shots, because I felt like there were, I don't know, I'll say 75% of these, 66%. Let's say 66%. I thought were shots that were well defended. I thought 33% were just like, why aren't we making them do anything? And then they just toss the ball and it's up and it's a wide open shot.
Yeah.
What did you think of the 3-point defense in this one?
Well, I guess we have to back up to the scouting report like we talked about last week. Lowell is not on the season a good 3-point shooting team.
We said that a lot. Did we say that a lot last year or what?
We did, and we always got burned when it happened, and I guess that is something that we haven't shaken. But I have to report the facts as they are before coming into this game. Lowell is not a good 3-point shooting team. The only time that they had double-digit makes of 3-pointers was against 2 lower division teams. Anytime they played a true D1 opponent, they really were not making many threes. They weren't taking many threes either. That's the other thing to note here, is like they took the most and made the most against lower division teams. Against D1 teams, they were not shooting more than 20 attempts a game, all usually in like kind of the 16, 17 range. And they were making anywhere from, 3 to 8 of those, right? So when they finished the first half 3 for 8 from 3, which would project out to 6 for 16 from the game, that's right in the wheelhouse.
And that's what Shirt said too.
Yes. Yeah. That's it. So it's one thing where you come out of the first half, they're shooting 3 of 8 from 3. You go, okay, that, mission accomplished, whatever. They're in line with their average. They just don't shoot much from 3. Pretty good team inside though. I like what they do inside the perimeter. So in the second half, they make some shots that you say were pretty well defended. On the others, we were going under ball screens on Martin Somerville, the freshman who, by the way, had a SLU offer, right? And
yes, I remember that name.
And I remember when he wound up there thinking like, wow, I thought he was a little bit better than that level. And then now watching him play, I'm like, he's going to end up at like a Boston College or somewhere that kind of, looked past him the first time around. Mm-hmm. But anyway, we're going under those, just waiting for it to sort of regress back to the mean. And it never did in the second half. They just kept making more and more and more. And so at some point I remember throwing up my hands and being like, all right, you've got to adjust now. You've got to adjust. You can't go under on this guy. Like, he's just going to keep making shots. Shirts gave him a ton of credit in the post game, in interviews, saying like he hadn't seen shot making like that in a while. He hadn't seen shot making that from a team in a long time. But that player in particular, he called him out. I think he called him number 5 and then remembered his name later. And yeah, it was just one of those things to me where I was like, I understand the strategy based on the math coming into the game, but you got to adjust. Like, cause the guy, he was like, players, this is why we play the games. Sometimes players just are feeling it. And that was a case where you really saw it, especially with him.
I feel like when you shoot 66.7% against Merrimack, 42.9% against Quinnipiac, I don't know. maybe you don't go under the ball screen. Now, in the spirit of what the fuck, against Central Connecticut State of all people, he shoots 20% from three.
Yeah.
I mean, in a game they lose by 2. 69-67.
Yeah.
WTF.
Go figure. I don't have an explanation for it. They made some crazy shots in this game,
especially at the end.
So it's 91-88 with 1:15 to play in the game. Lowell missed a layup with 48 seconds left, but SLU turned it over at the other end, and the Riverhawks got the ball back with 19 to play. Now, during this sequence, Zach, my daughter decided to go to the bathroom for, I think, the fourth time during the game. And when she says she has to go to the bathroom, you don't have a choice but to take her to the bathroom, or you're going to be sitting next to a wet seat at the game. So right as this was going on, I had to take her to the bathroom, but we made it back for this next thing, which was with 3 seconds left. Quincy Clark hit a long 2, and I saw, Zach, immediately that it was a 2, but they called it a 3, and most people in the crowd seemed to think it was tied. The rest went over to review the play, and it was correctly called a 2 eventually. But I'm standing in the tunnel holding my daughter's hand, being like, 2, 2, 2, that was a 2, that was a 2. So like the people turned and looked at me like I was crazy, but I'm like, I saw it. I had a clear shot from the other end of the arena. I was like, his foot was on the line. There's no doubt.
The interesting thing about that is I didn't, in the moment, I kind of was like, oh,
yeah,
I couldn't believe it went in. And then I sat there with it and I go, because they started reviewing it and I started thinking about it again. I was like, because I have a very sure idea of the court as it pertains to where I sit.
Sure.
So like my view is obscured by the basket.
Yep.
I still know where the 3-point line is, and it felt off. Like where he was at for a 3-point shot, it just felt off. And I was like, okay, let me go check that. So I popped up the ESPN Plus app and went and watched it immediately. It was still even like blurry, and I was like, yeah, that's a 2. All right, let's on with the next one. I was like, 2, if you don't call it back, I'm going to be pissed.
I would have been shocked if that was called a 3. Like it's just one of those things, like after watching enough basketball, you just see immediately, right? Like the break in the perimeter. I could see it perfectly from where I was. I did have my glasses on too. So, I'm much better from distance.
Stylish glasses too.
Thank you. Nothing but the best. But yeah, so Zach, I guess the conversation here is about the defense on this particular play, and the question that comes up is why not foul, right?
Yeah, I think there were multiple opportunities to foul in this game. And I think this one was probably the worst opportunity. But I thought, if you foul them immediately, I think that you have one to give. I think you have to foul immediately, right?
We did have 5 fouls at that point, so that was a big factor too, right? Because then they got to go inbound the ball again and then get the shot and everything.
But if you foul them right there in the backcourt, right?
Yeah.
Then you've now stuck the ball. The ball cannot be run across the baseline. So then you can now, you ended up eventually having Picard on the baseline. Yes. I mean, maybe you put Picard in that situation then to adjust the inbound and make it a little more difficult and maybe get the foul. I'm not sure. By the way, during the Bills game, there's a ribbon board advertising for St. Bonaventure on Sunday Night Football. I don't know. That's just why. It was just weird that came up specifically. I had to mention it. Yeah. But I think, I don't know. Like on this specific one, I thought they had it played so well. I thought defensively they had Lowell frenetic, moving fast, off balance, and of course he had to shoot it too. So they defended it well. He just made a really good shot. My problem on this one was actually after the Somerville takes the handoff, Swope blows it up, the ball goes towards the backcourt. Somerville recovers the ball. Anya has chased him to half court, putting him out of position. I understand where Anya's head is at here. You're trying to get that game-winning turnover, and Schertz even had a quote about it, about trying to get the steal. And I really thought that's where you foul. I thought that was an opportunity to foul, or Anya should have immediately recovered and played positionally.
Right.
I don't really want. How many times throughout these years since we've started doing this podcast, have we been texting each other during game or even on the show where we talk about that blown up play that ends up in a wide open three?
Yep, because you overplayed it.
Yes,
You've got the late game adrenaline, and you overplay the ball.
Yeah, we can talk about the fouling on this play. Again, I thought Slew defended it well, but I think the bigger sin, so to speak, on this play was Anya chasing down the ball carrier towards the backcourt and putting himself a little bit out of position. But I need to really give full marks to Kobe Johnson for not fouling. Was that Somerville who made the shot? I don't remember. It doesn't matter.
I don't think the last two were him.
No, but I think Kobe Johnson fully deserves credit for not fouling him on the 2-point shot. Because if Kobe Johnson fouls him, there we go. There's a 3-point play right there.
Yeah. So I do want to go to Schertz's quote on this, because he said, we told them we wanted to make sure we just didn't foul right away. We said on any kind of play where they're driving to go for the ball and try and steal it. I didn't want to give a foul with 10 seconds to go and make them take it out of bounds, get a timeout, and run a play. We did get a deflection, but just didn't get it. We wanted to run through any dribbles, not just foul to foul because they had 3 timeouts. We could have fouled, but wanted to get below 7 seconds, and the game clock was too skewed. And then I'll add here, Zach.
He said a lot of things that really can. I feel like Kevin Hart in 40-Year-Old Virgin, where he's like, you throwing big words at me, and because I don't understand them, I'm going to take them as disrespect.
So I'll circle back to that in a second. But our friend Matt Rocchio said they didn't have a great chance at a foul on this particular play. He just didn't think, like, the way that things were positioned on the floor, it would have worked out that way. The thing I'll say about Schertz is, like, I get all of that, but I also think he may have just been overthinking it a little bit, right?
I think that may be the one downside of Josh Schertz. I think he is such a nerd, such a basketball junkie, that he is going to analyze and overanalyze. And I think in some way it's kind of just a different type of what Ford would do. Yeah. Just in a different way. Like Ford would overthink the matchups, overthink bringing his players out because they made a mistake. He would overmanage the game.
That's right.
Whereas I think Schertz overthinks the game sometimes.
So yeah, I think this was an instance of, they won in the end, and so it's a lot easier to have this conversation. But
it's like when you watch poker or like blackjack, and they talk about, like, this is by the book, and you're like, I don't know if I do that, but they're like, no, this is analytically exactly what you need to do.
But there's also the thing of, like, well, maybe they think we're, like, he's thinking about how they'll respond. Like, he's talking about their timeouts, right?
Yeah.
So he's thinking about, well, they think that we should foul up 3 under 7 seconds. It's almost like Wallace Shawn in The Princess Bride, where he's got like poison in one and not in the other, and he's like, but you think that I'll think that you think, and it's like, okay, like, at some point you just have to
just play the game, man.
Yeah, you just play the game.
Sometimes the nerds gotta sit down and shut up. No, I think, look, I
think your bottom line with all of this, Zach, is you kept saying what about basketball?
So my point. Well, I want to put that at the end of this. Like, okay. I want to drop that line at the end, because I think that's like kind of the, we'll get in that.
Okay.
So they foul Swope on the inbounds after he makes a shot. After it's confirmed
After it's a 2. Right.
Billikens are up 1. Foul Swope on the inbounds. He makes both free throws. I said get it to Jimerson at any cost.
Yes.
Swope was money at the line. Unbelievable. Great job.
Yeah. Clutch.
2.5 seconds left. Lowell has the ball. They are able to, I believe Picard is on the inbounder. He's running the baseline. They throw it into whoever it was. Anya's guarding him. I thought this was the time to foul.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to call a timeout regardless.
Right.
I mean, if you want to foul here, you should have had a foul to give already. You should have already given away your foul to give. But if you foul here, I mean, I don't know. I guess it's the same. I don't know. I just thought, speaking from a point of not fouling a shooter and the easiest foul to get, this was the easiest foul you could have had.
So you're talking about on the inbound itself?
Yes, I would have. Yeah. Yes. I think fouling somehow you could. I mean, the ball was in the air for so long. Could you have fouled? Could Anya have kind of shoved the guy in the back before he even grabbed the ball? Like just literally just go over his back, like no clock run off. Like, I don't know.
That's where you get into the whole kind of intentional or flagrant or whatever, that or technical, like you open yourself up to some other stuff.
If you just reach over, like I mean, I don't see how that's going to be called.
Like a receiver and a safety both going for a
just grabbing his arm as the ball gets to it. You fouled him. I mean, that's you're kind of going for the ball, but kind of not.
Sure.
But again, we're talking about hypotheticals and magical situations that didn't happen.
It's also just important to remember in general here that we're still on 5 fouls, right? So they're still inbounding.
Which is my point about fouling on that inbound. And you could have, way in the backcourt. Then you have it at the side out of bounds. Picard can stand there and really make the inbounds difficult. But that's a whole nother story.
But now they've advanced it to half court.
Yes.
There's 1.4 seconds left. We've got Max Picard on the inbounder.
It's really nice. It's really nice to see Shirts taking my advice from Twitter.
Yeah, and putting the big on the on the inbounder. Yeah, I saw him checking his phone between plays.
Unbelievable. Risk the fine.
So the inbounder is forced to lob it to the far sideline, maybe at a higher arc than he would have with a guard covering the inbound. And a Lowell player had to stretch to keep it in bounds, got the pass into Yuri Covington, whose off-balance heave banked in, Zach, and would have tied the game. But he got it off just a moment too late.
Knew it immediately.
Immediately. This was one where you saw the red rectangle on the back.
God bless technology. That's the greatest technology to ever be introduced into basketball.
It really is. I mean, the ball was clearly in his hands when that went off. So I thought there would have to be a pretty big technological issue here.
The old Ian Vayukis, Missouri State.
Oh yeah, we got away with one.
Somebody mentioned that on Billikens.com.
Yeah. Now in this case, both plays were called correctly, right? Yes. These were absolutely the right calls. We saw them live, and then you could confirm on replay. There was just no doubt to me about either play at all. But it is weird to have sort of stolen this one on 2 technicalities there, right?
Whoa. Now,
I'm not saying technicalities. They were, it's not like
on review.
It wasn't a 50-50 call. Nothing was necessarily.
There was no judgment call. It was not a judgment call.
Right.
It was objective.
That's right.
I think obviously Picard, a huge reason why we won this game. I'm not kidding. If they have to make an easier pass, I don't know.
Yeah.
I wonder what would happen if they would have put both Picard and Brockhoff
out there.
Just both of them just smothering the guy.
That's how my son's team plays. They're just all chasing the ball. Anybody who can get it past the first line is going to have wide open players out there. But yeah, there was just no doubt about this one, Zach. So, we weren't necessarily saved by this. There weren't really technicalities. I'm not saying it right. We, like you said, we played good defense here.
Yes.
Right. There wasn't a controversy. We weren't saved. The right calls were administered. It's just,
would this have been the play of the season? Like, I think this is easily, like, this would end a season top 10 if they would have made this shot.
Oh, yeah, if that one counts.
That's
Yeah,
top 10 in the whole country the entire season. At the end of March, that's one of the top 10 plays.
the issue from the start is you don't have the luxury with 1.4 seconds left of being able to make a pass.
Yes.
Right? Like it can touch two players if there's like a tip situation.
And that's kind of what it was. It was
Yeah.
very much, it was almost like Swope or Jimerson would shoot the ball.
Yeah.
It was very in and out.
Yeah,
It was like a volleyball player setting a ball almost.
That's right. Yeah, he just flung it. But 1.4 seconds is just not enough time to have done that. And so as soon as the ball went back in, I thought he can't get it off in time. He didn't get it off in time. Schertz even said that's the longest 1.4 seconds I've ever
It was
seen.
right though. The clock was spot on.
Yeah.
They started it right. How do they do that now? Is it still somebody clicking a toggle?
As far as I know.
Is this okay? It's not the refs like reaching back here or something.
Yeah, I don't think that's changed.
Interesting.
So we just got to remind you at this point that, like we said last week, they're just not a 3-point shooting team. They were about 7 of 19 per game, and that's even with those other games that I talked about where they played lower division teams. So they were number 326 in the country in attempts, which is pretty close to the bottom 10%, cutoff point. So 12 of 19 overall, 9 of 11 in this game. You just never would have seen that coming. Martin Somerville, we talked about, was great. He was 6 of 10 from 3 off the bench. Yuri Covington, 3 of 3. He's the one who was almost 4 of 4 if that last one had counted. So Schertz said it was some of the best shot making he'd seen in all of his years of coaching. He didn't think the defense was necessarily bad down the stretch. He thought they were just shooting out of their minds. The defense, though, he did say was bad in other stretches of the game. We do agree with that, Zach.
Yes.
There were times where it was just kind of like, guys, love the offense tonight, but you're going to have to get some stops.
Yeah.
Over and over and over. I found myself saying, you got to get stops here.
And as far as fouling goes, on a macro scale in basketball, I think the sport is more exciting and entertaining when there is no foul up 3. I think anybody can agree that the endings are just better. You can't tell me, like, if you're gonna sit here and complain about the fouling down when you're down in the free throw shooting contest at the end, like, you can't complain about the up. Like, up 3 is worse. Fouling when you're up is just the lamest shit ever. Mathematically, I get it. It is the right play, but it is not as fun of a sport. I would not mind them doing their best to legislating this out of the game. Honestly, I wouldn't mind it.
Interesting. Automatic technical.
I don't. I mean,
like
being more deliberate in the call of like an intentional foul.
Sure.
Like, you got to play defense. You if you're gonna foul them, you have to look like you're playing defense.
Yeah.
But that again, that brings subjective fouls or subjective decisions into the situation. The Billiken offense. Wow, this team needs to figure out their defense, because on offense they are. Top 25.
They certainly were in the first half, Zach. It was just a really well-oiled machine. It was. I felt like it was the first full realization of what this offense can really do.
Yeah.
55 points. Gibson Jimerson led the way with 24, and then he did not score the rest of the game, which was, shocking.
Were they keying in on him then in that second half? What did you see?
He missed a couple threes early. Both of them were long. You feel like there's a little bit of adrenaline there. And then he didn't just get that many looks after that. I think Lowell gave him a lot more attention. In the process, they kind of opened things up for other guys, namely Robbie Avila, Zach. He and Swope really took off in the second half.
Yeah, a lot of this was kind of iso ball, which, again, the more iso ball we play, the more surprised I am that we see it.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, this seemed to be one of those games where they just kind of took what the defense gave them, right? It did tighten up in the second half. We didn't score 55 again. Obviously, it was 38 in the second half. So it did slow down, and I didn't think that was it wasn't exactly what we wanted on all of those looks, but Swope and Avila rose to the occasion. They carried SLU offensively in that half. Each of them went 9 of 12 for the game. Swope finished with 26. Never would have thought that he'd finish above Jimerson the way that first half was going. Avila had 23, which I think is the most points we've seen out of him yet. So really nice game. Along with Jimerson, the three of these guys combined to go 11 of 17 from three. Larry Hughes had SLU's only other attempts, and they were both misses. Zach, I think just having Robbie available really changes what they're able to do.
You said against Quinnipiac, get it to your All-American.
Yeah.
Didn't you? Was that you or Mike?
I think that was not me, but I think that I thought that was you, honestly. In that.
I think Mike said it, and then I just parroted it because it was right.
Yeah, I think it is right. Yeah, get it to your All-American. I mean,
even if he's not scoring, he opens up everything. I mean, we talk so much about how Swope is playing out of role. Mm-hmm. We talk about, Swope doesn't have to have the ball in his hands. I think the one part of Avila's game that still has yet to come along is the passing. That timing on the passing, we saw. I think every one of his backdoor passes in this one got tipped and turned over. I don't think he put many of them out there, but the ones he did in this 2-game stretch were just not very good.
He did have a few that got through, because I remember turning to my mom and being like there it is. That's exactly what we want to see. He hit somebody on one of those cuts.
There was one pass, I don't remember who did it, that made me made whatever demons inside of me just came out verbally. Yeah, I was just speaking in tongues in the Lowell game. I don't know what the hell. I think it might have been a Swope pass, but I'm not sure.
But even when he's not, racking up the assists, I think everything just kind of works better when he's out there. I mean, it's definitely the case.
I mean, you have to almost. It's wild that nobody really double teams him. Mm. Even as good as he is, going to the hoop, everybody just tries to play him straight up.
I think it's just because of his athletic limitations, right?
Yeah.
He's not.
But his passing is so good.
Right.
His passing is so good that if you do double team him, he's gonna find somebody, and it's gonna be Jimerson or Swope, and they're gonna be wide open.
Double teaming him could also mean leaving a lot of room open. Too close to the basket. So.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you just got to be careful, and I mean that's what makes him so valuable, right?
I've seen kind of an influx in college basketball, and I don't know if it's maybe just watching this program, is that there was one pass he made where he was on the low block. It was block to block, and he kind of saw it and then jumped over the guy's double teaming and just kind of dropped it into Anya.
Yeah.
Do you remember that pass?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one I've seen in a couple games. That right. Block to block double team.
He did that at Indiana State a lot.
Yeah. But that's a new one that I really like to go along with the 45 cut.
Yeah, for sure. Anya was great again, Zach, on the glass. He finished with a clean 10 and 10 double-double. Getting 10 rebounds in this game was all the more of an achievement when total rebounds were just 28 to 22.
Hey, you don't have to rebound well if you're not missing shots.
That's exactly what it was. I mean, both teams are making so many shots, and we'll get to that in a second, but he was the only player besides Avila and Swope to score in the second half, which is pretty weird to only have 3 scores in the second half, but both of these teams just shot ridiculously well. SLU 607 from the field, 579 from 3, 778 from the line. You take those percentages any day against anyone, but I think Lowell would too. 59% from the field, 63% from 3, 75% from the line. If I had seen that slash line out of any SLU opponent coming into a game, I would be very, very worried. I think I jokingly tweeted not jokingly, but tweeted first one to 90 wins. And at the time, Schertz's brother Michael tweeted back at us, Gibson might get there himself. I don't think he scored again after that.
The wildness of this one, the Billikens were up. Let's see, where is the 21-point lead? I'm trying to find the 21-point lead. They were at 99.4%, 99.6% to win, 75-54 at 13-16 in the second half. After a Kalu Anya made layup, and then their worst winning percentage was 67.1 at 86-85 Billikens with 2:35 left to go after a Martin Somerville 3-point jumper.
So SLU technically led wire to wire, except for a very early tie.
Yeah.
It was hard, Zach, to watch a 21-point lead almost get blown. I mean, 86-85. I had a pretty big pit in my stomach at that point. It felt a little like the SIUE game in that regard, something a lot of us had probably thought to ourselves, but that Stu tweeted at us.
I wasn't that far into it. I felt good because I thought we could get buckets.
Yeah.
Like the only time we weren't getting great looks at the rim, or not, I mean, great looks, but like anytime we weren't getting shots or getting points was when we turn it over. And that turnover, the only time I kind of felt iffy was it Gibson or Swope who dumped it into Avila, who was like this, and it went off his hand, and then they reviewed it. There was so many reviews at the end of this one. I thought for sure that was still our ball.
Yeah.
But
again, that it's just tough to give up that kind of lead. You kind of thought like, okay, those days are behind us, but they're not. I mean, I know it happens, but you hate to see it happen with regularity, right?
Yeah. This is one of those things where you're reminded, again, we talked about it in the Wichita State game. This is another instance of the ghosts of Travis Ford here at St. Louis University. It's, obviously we came up with the win, but these are things that are gonna hit different for the fan base, I think, than, a loss, a tough back and forth loss. I think, I don't know. So.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, look, when this MTE came together, we said that these are two pretty good teams that you just can't overlook. But once the games actually get played, you still want to take care of business, right? Like you still have that thing where most people in that gym, these are two programs SLU has never played before. So in addition to being like small Northeastern schools that we never really think about, there's zero familiarity with the majority of the fan base. So there's that, like they're not going to understand, well, each of them might be favored to win their conference. These people haven't even heard of the conferences that these teams play in. So it's like, it's just not that important to them. When they get into your house, you just want to beat them. Zach, one thing I thought was interesting was I thought it was notable how many more people were there on Wednesday than Monday.
Really?
But attendance was listed at 4,925, which was just 700 more than the Monday game. To me, it seems like a bigger gap than that.
It seemed like I felt like the upper section was just empty. I felt like it was more spread out in that Quinnipiac game. Did we have students at that point? We still had a couple.
We still had them. It's like I think they go Monday, Tuesday, or do they go Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday before Thanksgiving?
By the way, we've had terrible student attendance so far this year, which is some of it is the schedule, but
there haven't been all that many games.
That's true.
We haven't had much density yet, and then we had 2 on Thanksgiving week, right?
Yeah,
because people are kind of already starting to think about getting back home for a lot of them for the first time of the semester. So, I guess it's not entirely surprising, but you still want to see a little bit better showing.
Yeah, they need to really get people out for this Jackson State game tomorrow.
Yeah.
That one, and then is there another one at home? Sorry.
Yeah. Well, so
radio.
It's Jackson State, and then the next one at home is Sunday the 8th.
Chicago State. That'll be one you really got to get people out. That's really kind of, I guess, Jackson State and Chicago State are really and Wofford are the only real home games we have until Christmas break that with students on campus. So
yeah.
It's going to be important to get the students out and for the Billikens to put on a show, I think.
Sure.
Let's talk about, wait, what do we got here? What else do we got? Let's talk about the defense. I talk about ghosts of Travis Ford. The lack of rim protection is a carbon copy of last year. And it is frustrating.
Yeah, I get a little bit nervous anytime I see anybody over 6'10" coming in, especially if they've got some more vertical ability than our boy Robbie. Zach, I mean, it's just would you say are we surprised that we haven't seen more of them trying to play zone, given that they brought in Phil Gaetano and that Shirts, even though he's always played a man, seemed to have more of an eye on being able to switch to a zone. I mean, they've done it a little bit, but not a whole lot yet.
Yeah, I wonder how much it was a factor installing the offense and having time to work on another kind of a quote unquote gimmick defense that players aren't necessarily used to. I would assume most players are playing man everywhere else they play. So I mean, yeah, I'm surprised. I mean, you kind of talked up Gaetano and that he worked with the zone in previous stops, and I don't know. I just don't know where we go because Robbie can't defend well consistently against post players. Swope is a ball hawk, but I haven't seen much like McCautry. I think his team defense and his switching isn't great.
Yeah.
Going under the ball screen constantly. I don't know if that's a directive from Shirts, but like he was the most notable in that game. It was
Sure.
Swope's man getting the easy 3-point touches. Gibson has vastly improved this season. I thought he made an outstanding play against Lowell. He made one against Quinnipiac, and I thought he did pretty well against Wichita State, even though we sucked ass. But if those three are on the floor, they all play a bit under the Highmark rule.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, and look, Gibson is still capable of his lapses on that end, as well as we saw in these last two games at times, too. I don't know what the answer is. I mean, I think maybe you hope that Kobe Johnson. It seems like he's not 100%, but I think he's probably our best guard defender out there. I think you probably want to see some more minutes out of him. We're going to have to see more minutes out of him regardless as he gets back up to speed because Dotzler's out for the season. And we need somebody who can, handle the ball at one end and then defend on the other. So you gave him credit for his defense at the end of that Lowell game. And I think it should go remarked upon that he's just a really solid defender as it is. So I think you got to see more of him. I think McCautry needs to be schooled up on his team defense a little bit, probably Dames as well a little bit. Those are guys who have tools, but just need to put it all together. You hope it's one of those things that as these guys all play together more and more, it gets better as the year goes on. I think, obviously we're not the only team that applies to, but there might be a little bit more of a curve with a first year coach and with more guys than usual that just haven't played together before. I don't know. It's going to be an issue all year long. There are going to be games where we score in the 80s and lose. Which
I hope not.
It's going to happen though. It's going to happen. It's going to, it's just like, it's kind of just the way it is with the nature of this team. So I don't know what else to say about it than that. I'm glad there's not like a Deron Holmes still out there in the conference this year.
I mean, there might be.
He would be a real problem. I know there's some other good bigs, but I don't think there's anybody quite his caliber lurking out there on our A10 schedule this year. But we're going to run into some guys here and there for sure.
At what point does this kind of the defensive, the inability to protect the rim necessitate giving minutes to a guy like Brockhoff or Picard? I mean, I think Picard would be, again, I don't know. I haven't seen him play much defense, but his length and his, just the ability to kind of cover more ground just by having longer legs feels like he would be a good option in there, especially guarding a guard.
It's going to be matchup dependent, but all along with those two, it's just been they need to get up to speed physically. Even though Brokoff isn't a freshman, he's still a younger player, and they both need to get there physically. So we might see situations matchup dependent where you could see those guys if they go to head to head with guys with similar frames to them. But we've seen a couple bigs already that there's just no way that they could bang with for more than a few minutes. That's for sure.
Let's talk about this game on Monday tonight as you're listening to it. December 2nd against Jackson State. This is a dreadful Jackson State team.
Yeah, and we'll get to it in a minute, but they're not even the worst team that we're going to see this week, Zach. This is the second time SLU has ever played Jackson State. Yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, buckle up. But the first meeting was in Scottrade back in December 2005, which SLU won. The Tigers are 0-7 this year. They're in the middle of playing their first 14 games on the road, which is brutal. And they've had to play at places like Houston, Xavier, and Kentucky, but they still aren't that good, right? Like it's not just a team that's got a tough, deck to play against. They do. They're still not great. They've only lost by single digits twice at Southern Miss and at High Point. The only double-digit scorer on the team is a 6'5" redshirt sophomore named Jamie Mitchell Jr. He averages 13 points a game. He's taken about a third of their three-pointers this season. Shannon Grant, speaking of bigs,
here we go.
Could pose a matchup issue. He's 6'11", 290. So he's a big body, and I hope Robbie's ankle is reinforced for that. But the 6'9", 220-pound Ramel Mansell is the better player of their two front court players who start. I will highlight one other guy, a freshman named Dorian McMillian. He's scoring just under 10 points a game, and he seems like he's coming up to speed pretty quickly. Sorry that I have to say this, but they're a poor shooting team. They shoot less than 28% from three.
God damn it.
It's true. They shoot less than 28% from three. Don't get mad at me. It's the stats. And they shoot under 36% overall. Not a good shooting team.
They seem a bit skewed based on their schedule.
Yes. Yeah. Some of the blue bloods they've run into already are going to be skewing that. And if I'm hedging a bit here, just to kind of like set expectations, because we've been burned by a bad shooting team before. And the last thing I'll say about them, their head coach is former NBA player Mo Williams, which is kind of fun. I liked him a lot as a pro. He's in his third season there, and man, oh man, is this a challenging slate he's got.
So we have 3 games this week, and I didn't realize that.
We do.
Thursday the 5th is at San Francisco. This is a hell of a travel week for the Billikens, man. You gotta play at home on Monday. You gotta go all the way out west to the worst state in the union on Thursday the 5th. I mean, nice city, but like California is expensive, man. I can't even afford to go to this game.
I mean, yeah, worst state in the union. I don't think I'll agree with you on that, but I've been to Mississippi and
I've been to San Jose. My experience with California is San Jose. That is the Earth City of that is like it's like Earth City with some housing in there and some bars.
I don't love San Jose, but San Francisco is where they are at on Thursday the 5th. Great gym, great old gym, by the way.
I actually do wish I could have gone to this game.
I would love to see a game there, and I'm bummed I don't get to. But the Dons are coached by Chris Gerlifson in his third year at the helm. He won 20 and 23 games in his first 2 seasons. He's probably got another 20-win team in him this year. 4 of their top 5 players are seniors. The top 3 are all guards. Malik Thomas is a 6'4" guard who scores 15.6 a game. Marcus Williams, 6'2" point guard. He averages 12, 4, and 4. They also have a talented 6'6" freshman named Tyrone Riley, and he scores about 13 a game. Duedo, Ndewedo.
Sure. I got no idea.
Newberry is a 6'7" forward, averaging 10.3 and 4.3. He's British. And then Carlton Lingard, who started out at K-State, is 6'11", and he averages about 6 and 4. So they're not huge. Lingard, he's got some good experience, not putting up big numbers yet. People might remember the name Jason Rivera Torres. a 6'7" sophomore, former SLU recruit who started out at Vandy. He doesn't put up big numbers though. He was also in an Apple TV show. He was like an actor as a basketball player when he was in high school. I can't remember the name of the show.
Was it like, it wasn't the Fresh Prince show, was it?
No, it was called like Hoopers or something. It had like a generic basketball name. I can't remember what it was though. And then really, Zach, San Francisco's all about defense. That's their identity. They hold teams to just 63.4 points a game. Teams shoot under 36 from the field against them. That's really all comes down to that end. In terms of what they do, they're picked to finish fourth in the West Coast Conference, right behind Santa Clara, who we obviously already played this season. SLU is actually 3-2 all time against San Francisco, with the home team winning every game. The last meeting was a 61-50 loss out there in November of 1998. So, look, it's going to be a tough test. A top half WCC team, good defensive team. If you don't have a night on the road where you're clicking offensively, it could be one of those tough matchups in sandwiched, like you said, in a week where we've got 3 games.
Oh boy. Here is the worst team we're playing this week.
Yeah, so this is Chicago State.
Well, hold on. We need to talk about the. You mentioned IFC night for this night, which you're gonna have to explain that one to me.
I don't know. I was hoping you could explain it to me because on SLU's schedule it says IFC night. What is IFC? I know
Independent Film Channel.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like what?
But tomorrow night is the Divine Nine night.
Divine Nine. Oh,
which is the historically black fraternities.
Oh yeah. Okay. All right, yeah. So that's the Monday night.
IFC.
I missed that.
It could be fraternity, something involving fraternities. IFC night could be another fraternity thing.
Okay.
Because I typed in IFC, and after, of course, the channel which prominently aired Project Greenlight, I came upon something about frats. So.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
So it's IFC night on Sunday the 8th against Chicago State. SLU is 10-0 all time versus Chicago State, but the last meeting was just a 2-point win, 45-43 in December 2016. Mike Crawford led SLU with 11 points despite going 1 for 8 from 3 to give you an idea of just how fun that game was to watch.
It is the Inter-Fraternity Council.
Excellent. So we'll have good Greek attendance.
Yes. Probably not.
All right.
They will show up and leave at halftime.
That's exactly what they'll do. They'll get, whatever badge or whatever I don't know how it works. Who cares? Chicago State joined the NEC this season. Unfortunately, it has not been a great start. They're 0-9. They've lost 2 games by single digits. The first game at Loyola, Chicago, and then against Drexel on a neutral court. But nothing else has even been close. They're currently in a month-and-a-half long stretch with 12 straight games away from their home court. They're coming off a 21-point loss at Wisconsin, and they head to St. Thomas in Minneapolis before they come to SLU. They have no double-digit scorers on the team. Instead, they've got 8 guys scoring between 5.8 and 9.6 points a game. Almost everyone on the roster is between 6'4" and 6'7", so they're basically interchangeable parts in terms of production and size.
So Travis Ford coaching this team or what?
Exactly. The tallest guy is 6'8" and averages about 2 and 3 per game. The other exception is a 6'2" guard who scores 8.1 points a game. Zach, they are last in the nation in field goal percentage.
They're going to shoot the lights out against us.
2-point percentage. I want to say they're not a good shooting team, but truly, they are a bad shooting team. They shoot 29% from 3, not the worst.
They're going to shoot 45 against us.
Stop it. They're second to last in assists in all of the country. They don't get to the free throw line much at all. They foul a ton. They're a bottom 5 team in scoring average, a bottom 12 team in points allowed. They're hopeless, Zach. I mean, like they make winless Jackson State that we play on Monday look pretty good by comparison. I genuinely feel bad for them. They were kind of frisky and fun last season.
Ooh.
They went 13-19 in their last season as an independent. But first-year coach Scott Spinelli looks absolutely overwhelmed.
By the way, Spinelli is an elite last name,
especially when it's paired with an S.
Yes.
Yeah.
Not to be confused with Ashley Spinelli of Recess.
No idea.
Nothing? God damn it.
I've heard of it. You've mentioned it before.
Right.
You tell me I need to show it to my kids.
Yeah.
I haven't watched it. So anyway, Zach, this is one of those where you got to win by a lot. It's a bad team any way you slice it.
Both of these teams, like, I think one of these teams needs to change their nickname to the Barnstormers. Like, we need to bring that back. Like, as a nickname for something.
I like it. There's the Iowa Barnstormers.
The Iowa Barnstormers, Kurt Warner.
Yeah.
That's what's going on, man. I mean, this two terrible games sandwiched between a game that could very easily could be a loss.
Oh yeah. Yeah. San Francisco's quite good.
Yeah. Should we go around the A10? Because I need to answer the question, is the A10 actually good?
Well, let's find out, Zach. Monday the 25th, number 12, UNC 92, Dayton 90 out at the Maui Invitational. Dayton blew a huge lead. I think that was up to 21 points at one point.
We'll do it again.
Yeah. Hampton 64, Duquesne 59 in the Cayman Islands Classic. George Washington 72, Illinois State 64. Common opponent alert, by the way, in the Paradise Jam 5th place game. Penn State 85, Fordham 66 down in the Sunshine Slam. Nick Kern had 20 and 13, and Mike Rhodes is looking like a good hire for Penn State, by the way. Richmond 67, Florida Tech 57 in the Gulf Coast Showcase. And then Tuesday the 26th, Duquesne 67, Old Dominion 54 in the Cayman Islands Classic. Iowa State 89, Dayton 84, another blown lead for Dayton out in Maui, but not as big a lead this time. San Francisco, common opponent, 85, Fordham 64 in the Sunshine Slam 3rd place game. Louisiana Tech 65, Richmond 62, again in the Gulf Coast Showcase. And then St. Joe's 83, Coppin State 54. Zach, what happened on Wednesday the 27th?
Number 24, Arizona took down or absolutely kicked the crap out of Davidson. 104-71 in the Bad Boy Mowers battle for Atlantis. Rhode Island 81, Detroit 75 in the Jacksonville Classic. UMass 62, Harvard 54. Richmond 73, Ball State 60 in the Gulf Coast Showcase. Dayton 85, number 2 UConn with an asterisk number 2.
Yeah.
UConn 67 in the 7th place game in Maui. I don't think UConn is going to be number 2 this week. I truly think it's hilarious that Dayton got a shot at UConn. It would be unbelievable if like UConn just went winless in the Big East this year and just finished in like the bottom quarter of it. This is a Q4 loss or win.
Especially with like Villanova and a couple other teams reeling right now in the Big East, and DePaul on the come up, right? So the Big East is really shaken up like crazy right now. I think it's pretty interesting to see. But yeah, that was a really unexpected score to wake up to, Zach.
Xavier's not. Did Xavier end up winning that game tonight?
They did win against South Carolina State, but just by 3.
Thursday the 28th. Rhode Island 83, UT Arlington 78 in the Jacksonville Classic. Utah State 72, St. Bonaventure 67 at the NIT season tip-off. Utah State stays undefeated while handing the Bonnies their first loss of the year. Davidson 69, nice. Beats Providence 69-58 in the Bad Boy Mowers battle for Atlantis. Again, would be hilarious if Providence is just awful.
Yeah, I know. Pour one out for old Kim English.
Absolutely. Yeah, he's so overrated. Friday the 29th, number 3 Gonzaga 90, Davidson 65 in the 5th place game in the battle for Atlantis. George Washington 77, Virginia Military Institute 64, Mason 66, Madison 61. We got am I real? VCU 103, Elizabeth City State 58. ECSU is a small Division II HBCU in a coastal community in northeastern North Carolina. So, the more you know.
That's right, Zach.
Bonaventure.
I'm so glad you had to read that.
St. Bonaventure 68, Northern Iowa 56. The third place game in the NIT season tip-off. Saturday the 30th, LaSalle 83, Temple 75 in the Big Five. Temple's a mess, man.
They are. Yeah. I hope football's going to work out.
By the way, I'm so mad that we don't have a game at John Glazer Arena.
I know. I'd really like to see that. Maybe next year.
Sunday, December 1st, UMass 80, New Jersey Institute of Technology 68, Fordham 83, New Hampshire 61. We haven't done recruiting updates in a hot minute.
No, we haven't had a whole lot lately, Zach, but we did actually refresh 2 offers this week. 2026 guys, Hassan Qureshi and Josiah Jervis. Both of them had SLU offers already, but they came from Travis Ford's staff last year. Last week, the new staff was out to see them and refresh those offers. SLU's also now recruiting a few other players for their high school team, Powerhouse Archbishop Stepanak in New York City. Both of these guys play for the PSA Cardinals AAU program as well, which is on the Nike EYBL circuit. Qureshi is a 6'5" shooting guard with a ton of versatility to how he scores. He had 2 older brothers play D1 ball. Jervis is the higher level recruit right now with a more impressive offer list. He's also about 6'5", but he's got a bigger frame, more polish to his game, more immediately apparent athleticism, so you can kind of project him more easily as a D1 player right now. He just looks like an older, more college-ready guy, right? But they're both really good players. I think they're both obvious D1 players. I'm just saying one of them is further along at the moment. But it's kind of cool to see, Zach, that those offers that are left hanging with a coaching change. We've refreshed a surprising amount of those.
What kind of continuity is there with coaching staffs on that kind of stuff? I mean, do they have any idea that we had an offer out to that's super interesting.
I think they would know, right? If they really wanted to find out. I mean, there's also
you could go to.
There's also, you're right. You can find out anywhere. You could look at what I put on Billikens.com or the verbal commits or any place like that.
I can Zach Bovair going to Billikens.com to find out if we've offered a guy before.
I mean, stranger things have happened, but there's also the possibility that one of these kids just reached out and said, "Hey, we had an offer from SLU." Something like that. But I really have no idea. We've heard it the other way too, right? Like when we had Momo Cisse on the show, and he said that when the new staff came in to SMU, and he wasn't just an offer, he was a commit. They just didn't talk to him, right? It was just like, we're done with you. Like they just completely turned the page, completely left him hanging. That's a guy who was.
This is a reminder that I do not retain anything that anybody says on this podcast.
That's all right. There's a record of it somewhere.
Yeah.
So yeah, Zach, I think there's a wide range of possibilities as to how that happened, but we've seen this with a couple of Texas kids, obviously some of the St. Louis kids, and now a couple of New York kids getting their offers refreshed by the new staff. And I don't know. I think it's pretty cool.
You know what I think is pretty cool, Pete?
Before you do this, we also had a visit.
Oh yeah, we did. Keen eyes would have noticed a visitor behind the Billiken bench.
Yeah.
The other night.
Yeah, and we did have people asking who this was. I think someone had seen Jahidi White in the crowd as well.
Jahidi White.
I say someone, but it was my buddy Tim. He was asking, is that Jahidi White down there behind the bench with one of his sons? But there was another guy, Bentley Shelton, was at SLU. He took in the UMass Lowell game this week with his dad. He's a 6'5" shooting guard from Evansville, Indiana, but he's currently going to school up at St. Thomas More in Connecticut. We've been recruiting him for a few months, but haven't offered yet. His recruitment is really just starting to take off. St. Bonaventure and Bryant are the only offers, but larger programs are starting to kind of swirl around. So definitely one to keep an eye on. And it was funny. Somebody, I guess it was Joel from 2 Men in a Garden, said, hey, there's a recruit from Indiana. His dad says he goes to prep school up in Connecticut. That exact profile applies to 2 different guys we're recruiting right now. So I had to clarify which one, and it is indeed Bentley Shelton. So yeah, keen eyes, and thanks everybody for the tips that you put out there on recruiting. We love to solve those.
Pete, we got to talk 2 Men in a Garden salsa.
We do, Zach, and it was Thanksgiving this week, so I was back in St. Louis. I had a chance to get over to Schnucks and grab a couple jars of 2 Men in a Garden salsa, which I brought to my family's Thanksgiving, and they got wiped out. They proceeded to get wiped out, and I don't know about you, but a lot of my family members now are like really into like Instagram wellness influencers. And
oh no!
Hey. It's a deep hole, but what I do know is they're very conscious now of what they're eating. And one thing you'll see is when you look at the ingredients on 2 Men in a Garden, there's no BS in there, right? Like there's nothing weird. There's nothing that's going to flag whatever app you're running to check labels and stuff like that. So I do want to. I do want to give people a heads up that if you're bringing these to a crowd that's a little more discerning about ingredients in their salsa, it's still going to pass the test, right? It's still going to pass that test. Or if you have, the majority of your family who just doesn't care and they're just going to dip a chip in there,
they're still going to love it.
They're still going to love it. It's not just going to be one. So either way, it's a crowd pleaser. And I got to hand it to 2 Men in a Garden. They make a great product, and it's good for everybody. So head on over to 2meninagarden.com or head on over to your local grocery store if you're in St. Louis. Pick up some and share it with your family. Let us know what you think. Once again, 2meninagarden.com.
On the women's side of things, the Billikens had more than they probably bargained for with Cal Baptist without their leader on Tuesday the 26th. 82-70 win without Peyton Kennedy.
Yeah, unfortunately without Peyton Kennedy, Zach. And luckily, the prognosis is not worse for her, right? Like we eventually got her back later in the week. But yeah, unavailable for this one. We said this one when we looked at it, despite being a road game, it had to be a win, right? Cal Baptist was 0-5 at the time. And even without Peyton Kennedy, even though it was on the road, you got to win this game. But the good news was Tiara Simon was back and in a big way. 16 rebounds to go with 9 points and 3 blocks. I mean, she was great in this game. Very key.
She's been kind of up and down, more down than up. But I think Colin Surrey mentioned it to me. This team goes as Tiara Simon goes. He said that last year. This team operates best when Tiara Simon has a good game.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, like it feels like this is a team where they can leave gaps inside, right? Like they can kind of just get beaten inside if she's in foul trouble. When she's at her best, I would agree with him that's a big difference maker. Another difference maker, Brooklyn Gray came off the bench to lead SLU with 24 points. She also added 7 rebounds in her 34 minutes. I'm not quite sure why she didn't start and Bree Johns did. I mean, Johns just played 13 minutes. Is this like a Tillett thing? She likes Johns as a starter and then Gray's energy off the bench.
Is Bree Johns Grandy Glaze?
Maybe. Just in for that first possession and then
that high energy.
Right. Right. I don't know. I don't know what the situation is there, but nonetheless, good game for Brooklyn Gray. The story here, though, Zach, might be the breakout game from Mia Bergstrom, which we would see continue on throughout the week.
Big
17
Bergstrom
points.
guy over here.
Yeah. 17 points of 6 of 12 shooting, 5 of 10 from 3. That's what she does. This is what we wanted her to be, and we've seen it in smaller doses. But here she started and played 27 minutes. My note here was, let's see if she can keep it up, and we'll find out that yes, she can. West Pine Bills has been hyping her up, and it seems like she's the real deal.
Yeah, I really like. I think I would say her breakout game was when she came in and immediately scored 6 points. With it, I felt, regardless of the fact that she only played a minute in that game,
Right?
Like when you have 6 points in a minute, that's something that makes you go, okay,
Yeah.
okay. You have something. You have something
Yes.
we need, and you have something we want, and that is the ability to knock down 50% of your 3-pointers. But you may not have what we need in another area of the court, and that's why you haven't been playing. But it feels like either she found that, or Tillett has decided that like she outscores her negatives.
For freshmen, offensive-minded players, it's generally the defense keeping them off the floor, right? If she's going to high mark this thing, as we referred to earlier in the show, or if she's going to just like get her defense up to speed, either way, having her on the floor seems to be a net positive for SLU lately. So, let's keep it up. In the meantime, go ahead.
Well, you talked about freshman offensive-minded players, and that made me think of Shanturia Numale. She has shown flashes of brilliance on the offensive end, the ability to take over a game, but with that freshman age comes freshman mistakes and inconsistencies.
Yeah, for sure. Her efficiency has been the real issue lately. Just not making shots at the rate you would want her to, right? She still manages to end up with double digits in just about every game, 14, 4, and 4 in this game, but just has to be a more efficient shooter. Kennedy Calhoun had one of her games where she kind of fills the stat sheet, 11, 8, 4 with 3 steals.
She's really gotten lost on this team, it feels like, with kind of she doesn't get the headlines, so to speak. Not that there are many, but we talk about a game by Numale, or we talk about a game from Bergstrom, or Peyton Kennedy's injury, but nobody really talks about Kennedy Calhoun, and Kennedy Calhoun is kind of the engine that drives this bus on the offensive end.
I think that's it, right? Like, she's the engine, she's under the hood.
She's replacing Martinez.
She is, and she used to play alongside Martinez, and it's just a totally different dynamic with her. But she's rebounding her position for being kind of small. She's defending. She's moving the ball around. She's turnover prone. But
so was Martinez.
So was Martinez. She just kind of keeps the whole thing going, though. And you're right, probably a little bit underappreciated this season.
I still want to talk. I want to remind everyone that Julia Martinez, regardless of sport and or gender, is one of the most exciting players to wear a Billiken uniform.
Yeah.
I just want to say that again.
She was a blast to watch.
Yeah. She's like, if you put her up there with she's dynamic the way Hannah Sawyer is dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
The way Gaby's dynamic.
Right.
All right. Anyway, sorry.
SLU is -6 on fouls despite being the road team. They out rebounded Cal Baptist by 3. They only had 11 turnovers, which is a good number, but still wound up with 8 fewer field goal attempts somehow. Fortunately, the Lancers shot really poorly.
They were bad.
% from the field, 27% from 3, 47%.
That is shocking in women's basketball.
Yeah, they just kind of, if it was a night where they were shooting well, I think SLU might have been in trouble here. But luckily it wasn't that. It was just kind of a slow burn kind of game, right? Like, they never really ran away with this game. just took that lead early, really gradually grew that. It's not their typical game flow, but they did outscore Cal Baptist in all 4 quarters. I thought it was just a solid effort overall.
This is totally, again, off the rails, but I feel like a 4-quarter basketball game just changes the way you view. Like, nobody talks about winning the first and second half, but you get quarters into the mix and people start talking about winning quarters.
It's true. And, it's funny because sometimes our coaches would kind of break things down like that. I mean, Soderbergh loved to go even more granular and do it by like 4-minute increments, right? Like every media timeout. But I used to kind of think of quarters like in our games, right?
Like
because
10 minutes.
It seemed like on those teams in my era, the third quarter was always our weakness. We would play a team close for a half, get in a big hole in the third quarter and kind of fight our way back in the fourth. And yeah, those third quarters always killed us. We always came out of halftime weak. So I almost started thinking about the game in quarters in that era for some reason, just I guess because that's kind of how our games always flowed. But I agree with you completely. Looking at it broken into 4 quarters, totally different perspective.
We're going to talk about this 104-65 loss. This is one where you want to break it down by halves, I think.
Yeah, probably so.
104-65 versus number 6 USC. I texted my girlfriend at halftime and I said, holy shit, the Billikens are only down 4 at half.
Yeah.
And I was like, and then I texted her an hour later, they lost by 41.
Well, I mean, if we do break it down differently, Zach, it was the third quarter that was completely out of hand here, right?
Oh, I thought we were going to do halves.
If you want to do it by halves, yeah, it was the second half. But on paper, you could take it as a close game for 3 of 4 quarters. Mm-hmm. But that other one, the third quarter, was completely.
So you're saying they're a Soderbergh team?
Kind of. USC outscored SLU 37-8 in that quarter, which is everything has to go wrong for that to happen. But once again, this was kind of like that Drake game, right? The women lost a game to a very good team by a blowout score on paper, but it wasn't nearly as bad as the score looks, I think. SLU used a 12-1 run to outscore USC 22-18 in the second quarter. And to go into halftime, like you said, down by just a few, 2 possessions. They pulled to within 1 a few times, including with 1 minute left, but just couldn't hang on, Zach. Turnovers, foul trouble, shot selection, decision-making, everything caught up with them in that third quarter. And this is where that talent gap really emerged, even if Juju Watkins picked up her 4th foul in that quarter.
I got a text from our super secret source at halftime of this game. And it informed me that the USC women of Troy were out drinking the night before this game, and that they were taking the Billikens lightly.
So that explains that slow start.
Yeah. But no, I mean, like, whatever. It's, again, that's part of playing basketball. That's the mental game, right?
Yeah.
I still think, like, to me, that kind of thing isn't an indictment on the Billikens, right? It isn't an indictment of the Billikens losing to a team that went out drinking the night before. Like, to me, that is an indictment on the mental ability of the other two, like, the mental part of the game. That, like, my view on sports is holistically, like, it's off the court, it's preparation, it's recovery, it's all this stuff. And I think that's part of the mental game, is be able to lock in and take every game seriously. So I don't take it as a knock on SLU at all.
No, and it's worth bearing in mind that the difference between a top 10 women's program and a women's program in that 100 to 150 range, which is the kind of thing where SLU is vast. I mean, that's a really, really, really big gap.
It's ridiculous. If you want to see the gap in this game, go back and watch it and just marvel at the size difference between their team and our team. I'm pretty sure even if Trianta Philly and whoever the other seven, I got nothing here.
Oh,
If our seven for if you
Haidara.
yeah, sorry. Yeah. If you put those two in the game,
yeah,
we're still outsized by a lot
because both of them are so lean, right?
Yes,
and like somehow they find these players who are 6 foot to 6'6" and like built and skilled. And
it is
fluid.
I don't know where these players are coming from.
I mean, there can't be that many of them, but they get gobbled up by the same programs, man. But we'll get to them in a few minutes. I do want to talk about our players a little bit.
Yes.
Here. Peyton Kennedy was back in the lineup.
Mm-hmm.
She appeared to be less than 100%. She went 1 for 8 from the field and fouled out in 23 minutes. However, once again, Mia Bergstrom emerged as the real bright spot for SLU. She started, she played 20 minutes. She went 7 of 11 overall and 5 of 8 from 3. That's now 10 of 18 in the last 2 games to finish with 19 points. She did get into some foul trouble too, but this was a great performance and she's really coming along nicely.
I am starting to get the sense that one of Tillett's strengths as a roster builder is being able to replace scores with people you did not even think was possible.
Yeah.
Like all of a sudden Mia Bergstrom is now replacing both Julia, like she's replacing McMakin at this point. I don't, it's crazy. She pulls shit out of her hat that it's bizarre, but it's amazing. It's great. It works out for us.
Well, there was no question we had to upgrade the talent, and it looks like with Bergstrom and Anumale and Wallace is a little more of a long-term player, but I think that's the direction we're going. I think she's getting there. She's a great player motivator and all of that kind of stuff. But there was no question that we left some skill and size and things like that on the floor, and you want to see that gap close over time. Kennedy Calhoun, the underappreciated Calhoun, had 13. Brooklyn Gray finished with 14, but the two of them combined for 11 turnovers. USC really got
dude
in that third quarter.
Their defense was ridiculous.
Yeah, when you've got
the size and you've got the athleticism. And I mean, in that first 4 minutes of the game, I thought, oh my God, we're going to lose by 100 in this game because they're pressing now.
100.
Yes. Yeah. They're pressing now the entire game. And we are just looking like absolute poop against it. What am I supposed to go with there? I'm just going to assume that we're never going to score a basket.
Right. Yeah. The issue the issue is you're playing pretty well. How do you keep it up against a top 10 team that is in their locker room absolutely getting destroyed by their coach right now? And
speaking of their coach, I think I thought it was really kind of wild, the two female announcers talking about the coach's hairstyle.
Oh,
like of all things, like I imagine it as like two male, like just old school guys. Like, well, she changed her hairstyle, but in this case, it's two women that are just like, oh man, she's got that power ponytail in, and I'm like,
they must have seen it before. Like, it's signaling to them her mood.
I was just like, that's just kind of funny that the two women pointed out her appearance. That was
so you've got the combination of a team that is very big and skilled and athletic, just having maybe taken us a little bit for granted the night before and in the first half, just having been given the
riot act.
Yeah, of their lifetime, and then coming out and being very motivated. And unfortunately, Kennedy Calhoun was on the business end of that. Anumale, we talked about in the previous game, and it carried into this game. She continued to struggle with efficiency. 2 of 10 from the field. She somehow still finished with 10. She always does. We love her ceiling and a lot about her game, but she's got a long way to go with decision making, particularly her willingness to give it up instead of taking hard shots, Zach. Some of the reason her efficiency is so poor is she just makes things a little bit harder on herself than she needs to. I love the scorer's mentality. Gotta know when to give it up. And you're a freshman going against a top 10 team. And
The McMakin, she needs the McMakin
yeah,
trajectory here.
McMakin didn't really get that until her senior year.
No. Well, she didn't need to. That was the thing, is like,
right.
even like her first and second year, it was continuously getting better. But like before that, she had to do what she had to do.
Sure.
Anyway.
Yeah. So little, progress has to be made there. Tiara Simon led SLU with 11 rebounds, but also fouled out. Overall, SLU was plus 10 in turnovers, plus 10 in fouls, minus 15 in rebounding. USC shot 34 free throws to just 12 for the Billikens. They had 15 more field goal attempts and went 50% from the field and 47.6 from three. A lot of those, numbers really started to pile up in that third quarter.
When you have that much size in a sport like women's basketball underneath the hoop, there are going to be a lot of fouls on rebounds.
That's right.
And putbacks.
We'll get to the beneficiaries of that now, because Juju Watkins is every bit as good as advertised. She finished with 34 points. But I also want to call out Kiki Iriafen, who gave USC a second 30-point score on the day. How many times do you see two players on the same team score 30 points? And she added 12 rebounds and went a perfect 12 of 12 from the line. Always lethal when a big can do that. When she wasn't getting fouled, Zach, she just got everything she wanted inside. She's 6'3" and really, really good. And yeah, that's the player we're talking about earlier, basically. It's just like, where do you find that combination of size and skill? She's really good. But aside from that pair of players who combined to go 6 of 8 from three, no one else outside of those two and those four, honestly, really stood out for the Trojans. I thought they had a lot of good players, but like nobody that was really worth writing home about except those ones.
Yeah, like I said about the calls, this is one of those games where you're just not going to get them, and you're gonna get called for fouls when you're that outsized on the boards.
Yep.
Again, you're going up against great players. They're going to get the great player whistle. Everything has to go right, and everything went right in that first half. You can't turn it over. And I mean, dude, again, like I literally thought we were going to turn the ball over every possession with that press. There was just so much size in it, and our players did not seem ready at all.
No, they were just completely overwhelmed at that point. And that third quarter especially was just like where the switch was flipped. And yeah, you can't turn it over, but I don't know if there was any way around that. You've also got to make just about every shot you get at that point, and that's when things started to kind of dry up. Unfortunately, for a while, SLU was able to hang in there, and it was just too much after that. But credit to them for that first half that they did. I think kind of pour some bucket of cold water on their faces, right? To USC, who sounds like they may have needed that. Regardless, out in Palm Springs, had a little too much fun. But another valiant effort from SLU, and I hate that a couple of these scores are showing up so much worse on paper than they actually were. I think Missouri and Missouri State really were that bad.
Yeah.
Drake and USC were not. So I hope people kind of remember that.
Next up, Tuesday, December 3rd, versus or at home against Murray State. I'm talking like I'm a 12-year-old. Versus anyway, Tuesday, December 3rd versus Murray State. The Racers 3-2, Pete.
Yeah, they're coming off a blowout win over Little Rock, and then before that, a 4-point win over Memphis. So they also have a win over SIUE and losses at LSU, which of course, and then against common opponent Southern Indiana. We both lost to them. They have 4 players averaging between 14.8 and 17 points a game, and it's a big drop off out of that. Still, they score over 86 points a game. They only allow about 71. They're a great free throw shooting team. They shoot a ton of threes, make about 33% of them. So not great, not bad. but really willing to let it fly from three. So this is a team that can run up the score on you. And if, two or three of those top four are feeling it, this is a tough game. This is a really tough matchup, Zach. So I hope nothing is taken for granted here. This is a tough schedule.
It is, and it continues on the 7th against Norfolk State in Washington, D.C. Coaches versus Racism Round Ball Classic, not coaches versus cancer.
No, racism this time.
Is cancer still going on, or did we defeat it?
Cancer has not been defeated, so as far as I know, that one's still happening.
Okay.
Racism either. So
I almost got excited for a minute. I thought we defeated it.
This game's in Washington, D.C. at that, what do they call that gym? It's like this something and something event center. I think the women's tournament was
something in Mac? No, that's
yeah, you get I'll have to circle back.
I'll check it out.
What the gym is actually called, because it rang a bell. Oh, Entertainment and Sports Arena. That's what it is.
That's just what it's called.
Entertainment is we've definitely played there.
Wait, hold on. So it's just called Entertainment and Sports Arena. That sounds like it was translated through 4 different languages.
Right, I know. It's ridiculous.
Okay.
Anyway, that rang a bell. But Norfolk State is somehow already 7-3. You'll remember that they beat Mizzou and Columbia because we mentioned that last week. And they've also beaten William and Mary, Longwood, Hampton, Radford, UNC Wilmington, and Wyoming.
And their men's team beat Mizzou in 2012.
Never forget. They've lost to Green Bay. That's what they're coming off of right now. They lost to Washington State 2 games ago, and then a ranked Alabama team they lost to earlier by 10. So they keep it close, right? They're a defensive-minded team. Their average score is 63-57. They want to slow it down. They're tough. They force a ton of turnovers. I wish I could say things are going to get easier for SLU this week. They're not playing a top 10 team. These are 2 very good teams. One has kind of a go-go offense. The other one has just a really stout, tough defense. They'll make you turn it over. They're not afraid to foul you. So this is another tough week for women's basketball, Zach. And if we go 1-1 this week, I think that's all right. I'll take that.
Pete, we gotta talk women's soccer to close us out here. We gotta follow up on the injury suffered by Emily Puricelli against USC and Simone Jackson. It was torn ACL, MCL, and meniscus. I will say 100%. I don't think it was, you go ahead, you wax on this one, and I'll get the Shields quote.
Yeah, Zach. So this is one where in real time, you just thought like, oh God, that's unfortunate. Like my initial thought was like, oh, come on. She could have gotten out of the way. Puricelli had the right of way on that. She's the goalkeeper. You've got to let up. You've got to veer off to the side. Whatever you got to do not to run into the keeper there.
100%.
The more I watched the replay, the more I thought like this should have just been a straight red, not a yellow. And this was something that I had before we heard from Shields on the play. I know you agreed with me on this. I know you had been banging the drum, about this one on our Twitter account.
Yeah.
And I just really thought there was a clear kind of step and a half extra that she seemed to take into this.
It wasn't a path to the ball. It wasn't a step in front of the ball.
Right.
She had no interest in doing anything with the ball. She went almost like you were making a run, because it's a 50-50 ball, right?
Yeah.
You're going for the ball as the player is going for it. It's not one of those where the goalie has the ball and you're kind of blocking off the pass by going this way, right?
Right.
You know what I'm talking about? Where you're blocking off the horizontal pass.
Yeah.
And also forcing the goalkeeper to play it long.
Right.
So it wasn't that. It was you're going for the ball, and the first person to get there is going to do something with the ball. And Puricelli's only thing she could have done is cleared the ball. There was no way Puricelli was going to hold the ball, so there's no reason to play her body. Right. It felt like she stepped out of her path to go to the ball to put an elbow and a forearm into Puricelli, and it knocked her off balance and caused a fucking ACL tear. And it is absolutely, it should have been a straight red. I would have changed the game completely. And it's gutting for a player who's one of the best goalkeepers in the country. And
So-
it's loss of money. I mean, it's certainly financially impactful.
So that's right, Zach. And that's kind of one of the things I wanted to get into here, is because you find out it's an ACL, MCL, meniscus tear, and you go, well, wait a minute, like, this is the end of her career at SLU. This was her last game. She was the most experienced player by games played in the country. This was her 109th game. She's got every SLU goalkeeping record now. Unbelievable player, storied career. And coming into the season, we knew she was one of the top few goalkeepers rated, nationwide. And it seems like that has, she's more or less the season played out as expected. Like she stayed up there, right? Like she didn't have a bad year. She's still going to be one of these players who's going to be getting looks at the next level now that the women's game has grown so much in recent years, to have a number of true paths, options for players, top tier college players coming out of college. So this is like like you said, this is a career impacting play, right? Like this didn't just happen to be her last soccer game competitively before she goes off to, get an MBA or whatever, or enter the workforce. Like this is a player who has a real chance to play pro, and now that's set back an entire year.
I do wonder how much impact the new format of signing players with the NWSL will impact it, because I wonder if it'll be positive or negative, because now you don't necessarily, with the draft, if you miss the draft, you miss a lot. So I don't know if she'll be necessarily missing anything. Obviously, a contract signing would be something, but she still has the opportunity, I think, to try to get on with a club while she's injured.
Yeah.
But again, thank God that, I mean, I'm assuming SLU insurance will cover this in her recovery. So, at least I hope so. I would imagine that, but like that would be an issue too, right?
Right.
Not being, coming out of college, not necessarily on insurance, having to pay for it out of pocket, or at least what's not covered out of pocket, would be a mess. And, it was unnecessary. I mean, she stood over her and stared her down. I don't know. And then looked disgusted when Puricelli was injured. I don't.
It may have been the whistle, like when she kind of like threw her head back a little bit, like, oh, come on. It may have been I don't know. Because maybe the ref came in with a yellow.
To be fair, in the video that I have ripped from the broadcast, like it's not synced up. So, that could be an issue. Let's talk about this Katie Shields quote. And I lost it. That's awesome. I hate everything. Here we go. I got it. Okay. She said, I don't think it was a 50-50 ball. I don't think it was intentional, or I don't think it was unintentional. Do I think it was premeditated? No. But it was unnecessary. It was dirty, and it affected the outcome of the game. Not only it affected Emily's career. She's devastated.
Yeah. Yeah, and she went on to say, like, she like, I think when the play happened, like she said, Emily's not going to come off the field unless she's dead, right? Like she just told her, like, oh, she's not coming off, she'll play through it. But then a little bit later, you realize, like, oh, she's actually got to come off. This is serious. Yeah,
she said when you get some distance and watch the replay, I think it's a straight red. It's infuriating.
Because we also, go ahead.
Oh, no, go.
Well, we also found out right here that, in all of these quotes, that she requested a review from the official, and he refused. He turned it down. And think about all the plays that got reviewed in this game. And then this is one that he refused to review, and you just kind of, I don't know, I kind of scratched my head at that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
Fuck USC.
Yeah, not our best couple weeks against the Trojans.
It would have been so beautiful to really beat that basketball team.
Yeah.
Puricelli, come on the show. Let's talk. Whenever.
Yeah.
We got look, that woman's a Billiken legend of any sport.
Yep.
Absolutely one of the best players at her sport to ever come through St. Louis University. Maybe the best women's soccer player of all time to come through St. Louis University.
Mm-hmm.
Most definitely. I mean, she has to be. It's one of these three that we're losing at the end of this season, right?
Yeah.
It's Gaby, Heckle, Puricelli. It's one of those three.
Yeah. Yep. They're all up there.
No matter what Simone Jackson or USC did, it's not going to affect her. It can't take away what a fucking legend she is. So,
yeah.
All right.
Yeah. Shame it ended that way.
All right. I'm depressed. Let's call it a day. Thanks, everybody. Don't forget to, interact with us on all platforms. We really appreciate it. Thank you all for listening, indulging us every week as we talk nonsense in Billiken basketball. Pete, go Bills.
Go Bills.